Hey guys, Nemo here, and if you've seen the title of this video, then you know what's up. You know what time it is, you know what we're gonna do. We're gonna be building Obedient Dead. Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that three of us decided to play Obedient Dead and test that and make a deck build of it in kind of the same week. And I guess I'm a bit late with my deck build for it, but I really wanted to just test every card. And you know, I don't play Magic in real life, so I need to there's a bunch of cards in here that I was pretty sure were bad, and I just wanted to actually play with them to just decide if they were good or not. And then there were a bunch of other cards that just, you know, me not playing it in real life means that it's difficult for me to decide if it's good or not at first sight. It basically means that I have to test every card in the deck, but I did that, and I'm done with testing every card in the deck, and I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on this deck. And the last few cards really were just deciding on the mana base that I want my deck to have. And I did that, and now I'm done. So let's get into this deck. And this series should be called Building Obedient Dead. Or actually the series should be called Building the Deck. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put every card in there for as far as that's possible. And the reason I'm doing it this way is not to rip off WMG, though I really like their videos. It's because this is the easiest way to, because this is kind of the process I went through to make the deck the way it is. So it's the easiest way for me to explain how I'm thinking about it and all that. So yeah. Anyways, let's just go and see. The first thing I want to do is just go and take out the cards that I know are bad. So let's go here. Like this Blister Beetle is a 2-cost 1/1, enters the battlefield and gets a creature -1/-1 until end of turn. It's bad. A 2-cost 1/1 isn't good, and its effect is sometimes useful and sometimes not. But when it's useful, then it just kills a 1/1. Like if this was a 2/2, then the 1/1 that it kills would be irrelevant most of the time. So it's only good in certain situations when the 1/1 you want to kill is actually something like a Soul Warden or whatever, you know, something that is actually worth killing in the first place, and then it's good. But you might as well just cast a kill spell then, because this guy, I mean, he costs 1 less mana, but in the end he is just a 1/1 guy. So you know, when he's good, he's not that much better than just playing a kill spell, and when he's bad, he's pretty bad. So that's why I don't like Blister Beetle. That means 2 more cards in the deck, yay! Anyways, next few cards. Exsanguinate is one of those that I just deemed is not worth playing, and the reason for this is, well, it's kind of hard to explain, but let's just look at the type of deck this is, right? This deck is a deck that has, for instance, this is 1 card and kills 1 card, so that is a 1-for-1 trade, right? And then you have a few cards like Infest and Mutilate that are really good and kill multiple creatures and give you card advantage. However, this deck doesn't have much card advantage, and even it has some, well, this is, I guess, not card disadvantage, but at least tempo disadvantage for you. At least the thing is, you're mostly trading 1-for-1, so you want to do everything in your power to make sure that you trade for more than just 1-for-1. Or at least, I mean, yeah, the bombs in this deck really make a lot of good when it comes to that, and we'll get to that when we get to the bombs, I guess. But really, my point is that you don't want to be trading 1-for-1, and this card really doesn't affect the battlefield. It gives you life, but it doesn't affect the battlefield. And gaining that life at the beginning of the game, like when it's important to get these kind of spells out, you just gain like 3 life. Right, and when you're at 6 mana, then this is irrelevant, because you have big bombs that are gonna win the game for you. So at 6 mana it's irrelevant, and so the most life you're gonna gain from it while it's still relevant is gonna be 3 life. The opponent's gonna lose 3. So that's basically a 6 life swing. Now would you play a card that says costs 5, you gain 6 life? You wouldn't run that. So I don't run Exsanguinate for that simple reason, and it's pretty much a win more card when it does work, and when it doesn't work it's pretty lousy and just gains you 3 life, where you could have been murdering that 1 creature that was giving you a lot of trouble, and in the end that's gonna be a lot better for you. Like when this does work early on in the game is when you're playing against like goblins and you're getting really steamrolled and just need to survive one more turn. But I mean, Mutilate, Infest does the same thing in that case, and much better. Even Last Kiss would be better in that case. So I would run Last Kiss before I ran Exsanguinate. So yeah, that's just my theory. Like Vampire Nighthawk would be better in that case as well. Um, so yeah, I mean that's basically the gist of it. Tendrils of Corruption would be insanely much better than Exsanguinate. So yeah, basically it's kind of a trap in this deck, and it seems really good at first, but once I started playing with it and you know, seeing the situations that came up with it, I pretty much wrote it off quite fast because I just don't think it's good. So yeah, there's my opinion on Exsanguinate. Do with it what you will, but you're not gonna change my mind about it. Now these Jet Medallions, this deck needs Jet Medallions because you win the game in turn 6. Maybe turn 7 at the most, but basically this deck just needs to hit all of its land drops, and that's also something I should talk about, right? You want to run 60 cards in this deck. I know that in this game you can't affect your mana. Like once I have this down to 60 cards, I'm gonna have 25 lands in this deck, and in some decks you want to run maybe more than 60 cards, and I guess we'll get to that when I get to other decks. But I might run more than 60 cards in some of these decks. In fact, in Goblins I would never run 60 cards. It just seems like a bad idea to me. So yeah. Anyways, what I wanted to say with that is, in this deck you want to run 60 cards. However, because you just want to hit all your land drops, and let's actually count how much ramp we have. We have 2 Jet Medallions, which I guess count as ramp, right? And then we have 4 Liliana Shades, so that's 6, which means you can count that as 3 lands, because you have to have land to be able to actually play these spells, so they don't count as actually 1 land, they count as half land. So basically having 4 Liliana Shades and 2 Jet Medallions means that we have 3 more lands, which means we are running 28 lands, which is the number you want to be running for a deck that is mostly just aimed at getting to the late game and then dropping a big dude and winning then. Really a control deck wants to run about 28 lands, and that seems fine for this deck. So that's why you also want to keep all of this stuff in, and you want to keep the deck at 60 cards. So yeah, just something there. Now Nantuko Shade is obviously insane, so we're gonna keep that in for sure. Signing Blood is a card that, you know, I can't just take this out. I know that it can lose you the game against goblins, but you don't want to run this deck to just beat goblins. You want to run it against the rest of the field. I know that goblins is really the deck to beat as well, but just taking out a card that is really good just because it's bad in one matchup isn't just not the way to go. So and this deck really needs its card advantage, because like I mentioned before, murdering something is a 1-for-1 trade, and you want to somehow get advantage out of all of this. So when you have cards like Sign and Blood that gives you card advantage, you want to run them. And as well, it's another chance at drawing that land that you weren't drawing before, because you go through your deck faster, so you get your land faster. So basically, Signing Blood is even more land. So basically, it's like having 4 Jet Medallions in the deck, and as well, sometimes you draw something really useful off of it. So that's why I run both of them. Dread Warlock is a 2/2 unblockable for, well, basically unblockable. It is better than Fear basically, because even artifacts can't block it. So this guy might be okay in like Exalted. This might have been an okay guy. Even then I wouldn't be too excited about him, but in this deck it's just obviously bad, because you're not about the aggro, you're not about, you know, the early game. You don't care about having an unblockable 2/2. You want to get your huge ass Massacre Wurm or something out late game and win that way, and the Dread Warlock is just not gonna do anything for you except maybe chunk block or something. So yeah, and then let's just move on to the rest of the cards that I know are bad. By the way, the cards I'm skipping now, I'm not saying that I'm gonna keep them in the deck. I'm gonna get to them later, right? I'm just taking out the cards that I know are bad first. So, Underworld Dreams is not doing anything for the game. You are, again, not an aggro deck, so dealing 1 damage a turn doesn't matter anything. Once you get to your big guys, you're gonna kill them in like 2-3 turns, and Underworld Dreams doesn't really matter then. Sometimes it can shorten the clock, I guess, but just having a murder in hand also means that whatever they draw doesn't matter that much. So basically, in a control deck, you wanna just control the opponent and not, like, putting pressure on them is good and all, but it's just not good enough, this. And just being able to control them and making sure that you know that you're gonna get to the late game is much more important. And if you can see how many cards there are in the 3-drop spot, then Underworld Dreams just doesn't make it. Although I know that it's good against the mill deck, and in the mill matchup I would, well, it depends on how he runs his deck, but most people I know just run the version that draws a lot of cards. So I would definitely run Underworld Dreams in that version, because it just punishes them for, you know, playing the deck. So yeah, but unfortunately this deck doesn't have sideboarding. This game doesn't have sideboarding, so that's not gonna happen. But would have been nice. So Warpath Ghoul is a 3/2 for free, and it's just not gonna be played. He's just bad as an early beater, and this is a deck that doesn't even want early beaters. So why would I want him? And then let's move on to some other stuff that, like here, Incremental Blight is a 5-cost spell that puts, you can't, the thing about this spell, right? You can't, if he has 2 creatures out, then you can't be like, put 1/1/1 counter on one creature, put 2 -1/1 counters on that same creature, and put 3 -1/1 counters on a third creature. You can't do that. There have to be 3 creatures, and sometimes you have to hit your own guys, and it's just bad. Like, this is a deck, if this deck didn't have so many murders and kill spells, and stuff that kills their guys before turn 5, then maybe this would have been okay. But since you have so many kill spells, you don't want something that only works when you've not been doing your job, basically. And so basically, if you want to get this to work, then you have to already have it in your hand by turn 3, because then you know that you're gonna be able to, you know that you're gonna have it. If you draw this turn 5, then it's dead, because you almost never let them have 3 creatures on the board. So, and then, right, so you have to know that you're gonna have this. So you have to have this in hand already at turn 3, and then you have to not murder something, just so that you can play Incremental Blight on turn 5, and get as much card advantage out of it as you can, I guess. But really, against the faster, more aggressive decks, then starting to kill their guys on turn 5 is too late. So, whatever. And it's especially not worth it when you have Massacre Wurm the next turn. Then you want to wait even longer. So I mean, it's just a recipe for disaster. You don't want to run it. Again, Nested Ghoul is, I guess it's a nice creature really, but it's also a guy that is basically fit more for an aggro deck, and this isn't an aggro deck, so gone. And the same goes for Veilborn Ghouls, and even in an aggro deck they're probably bad, but hey, I guess, yeah, they come back really. If you see my campaign game against goblins, against Krenko's deck with this deck, then you will see that I had the Veilborn Ghouls, and I had a very good setup with the Veilborn Ghouls, because I had Zephyr Gorgon as well, and I was basically turning all the guys into stone every single turn. Every time he dropped a creature, I turned it into stone, you know, so he couldn't do anything with the goblin deck. And then I had the Veilborn Ghouls, which just kept coming back. However, all his guys kept locking me, so it just took forever, and eventually I drew something else that won me the game rather than the Veilborn Ghouls, because they just couldn't get past. So, what I'm trying to say there is, that was a situation that was pretty much the most perfect setup for Veilborn Ghoul to do its job, right? For its recurring effect to matter. And even there it wasn't good enough. That's what I'm trying to say. So this card definitely does not make the cut. And then we have these public executions, which kill spells for 6, and like its effect is nice if you top deck this or something and you really have been having the worst possible game. However, somehow you've been managed to get lucky and survive that game until turn 6, which is just like in a game that this card makes a difference, then it's extremely unlikely for you to even hit turn 6 in the first place. But let's say that happens and then you blow him out, and great, like for one turn and you kill one of his creatures, and then like that's great if he has like Odric or something, or but most of the time in a deck that you want to give all the rest of his creatures -2, -0 and kill a creature, then that one creature you're gonna kill is gonna be a token himself as well, or at least not as important as something like, say, Grave Titan or whatever. So basically what I'm trying to say is, why would you run this? And especially now that we have Massacre Wurm, why would you ever want to run Public Execution? So yeah, those are the cards that we definitely don't want to run. And now let's put in the rest of these, and I guess we're gonna go over those as well. The cards we definitely don't want to run. Now, Hellcarver Demon is a 6/6 flyer for 6, and basically he is better than Nightmare if you get lucky, but worse than Nightmare if you don't get lucky. But really the big problem this has is that it exiles everything. So if this doesn't work, then you're screwed. And you could turn over like Corrupt, and Corrupt wouldn't do anything because you exile all your lands. All your lands gone. So Corrupt wouldn't even do anything for you there. You could get Nightmare, it wouldn't do anything for you there. You could get like Nightmare Incursion, wouldn't do anything for you there. Like it's good if you get Massacre Wurm and Grave Titan and everything, and then it's just a big win more spell. But really it has a big downside in that you can get totally blown out. And aside from that, aside from you getting unlucky with it, there's also the little thing called bounce, or kill spell or whatever. Let's say you attack with this guy and you manage to get in once, you get maybe a Massacre Wurm aside from the Hellcarver Demon, and then the opponent just says, okay, all your lands are gone, everything else is gone, you've got these 2 big threats on the board. Yeah, I would be dead, except I have these 2 bounce spells and now you can't do anything. GG. So it's just bad. And aside from all that, I do want to say as well that you've got stuff like Grave Titan, you've got stuff like Dread, you've got Massacre Wurm. These cards win the game pretty convincingly. So why would you run something that might win you the game, might be like a win more spell if you get lucky on the same mana? Like, that doesn't make any sense, so I won't do it. Nightmare Incursion, again, at 6 mana I want to win the game. I don't want to search your library and do stuff. And I had this spell once, and you can exile 6 cards, and there's more than 6 cards in every deck that wins them the game. So it's not even foolproof. And you can't get cards out of the graveyard or anything, so if you have stuff with recursion, that's actually good, unlike this Veilborn Ghoul. Then Nightmare Incursion doesn't even help there. Hey, recursion, incursion. There must be a joke there somewhere. Anyways, so as we've been talking about here, we want to look at our mana curve now, which is totally completely screwed up. So yeah, look at how many 6+ drops I have. So I want to do something about that, right? So basically all of these cards here are actually really good, but some of them just aren't good enough for this deck. So I guess we're gonna go over Zephyr Gorgon first. That same game where I had the Veilborn Ghouls and the Zephyr Gorgon, yeah, the Zephyr Gorgon saved me from dying for a very long time, but if I just got Massacre Wurm instead, then I would have won the game right there. With Zephyr Gorgon it took me a very long time, and he actually had a chance, albeit a small one, of ever coming back. So basically Zephyr Gorgon doesn't immediately win you the game, but it almost ensures it, but it doesn't completely ensure it, and most of the other cards just ensure it. So and the other problem I have with Zephyr Gorgon is that most of the time you're not gonna have just one big bomb, you're gonna have more of them. And if you play Zephyr Gorgon, then draw your next big bomb, then you can't play it because you have to actually use the ability from Zephyr Gorgon, or you have to admit that hey, Zephyr Gorgon isn't good and it's just a free 6 Death Touch now for 6, and I'm never gonna use the ability because I want to be dropping more bombs. So I don't know, I just don't like it, and I'm not gonna run it. It's a shutdown card, and I don't want a shutdown card at 6. I want a game-winning bomb at 6 mana. Okay, so let's go over here. All these cards, like I said, are really powerful and almost assure you that you win the game, except for Avatar of Woe, which like its effect doesn't happen enough, and it's not big, it's not good enough at 8 mana, so I can pretty much just say no to Avatar of Woe. Although I can pretty much just say no to Avatar of Woe, although in Two-Headed Giant I might play it, yo. Oh, that was terrible. Okay, so anyway, the rest of these 8 drops and this one 9 drop, well, I have game winners at 6 mana, so no. I don't want to run 8 drops and 9 drops. Basically, Reaver Demon, if this card said play this and you win the game, then I would probably still not even play it because it's 8 mana. And really, to be honest, it does pretty much say that, because like you get a 6/6 flyer and you kill everything they have, so you pretty much are pretty much ensured that you win the game if you ever cast him. But at 8 mana it's not gonna happen as much as the cards at 6 mana, and it's not even gonna happen as much as playing like 2 cards for 6 mana. So and 2 of these cards pretty much ensure you to win the game anyways. So really it's just overkill, and 8 mana is too much for my liking. But you could play these cards, or maybe one of them, like, and I wouldn't be too upset with you. They are good. Anyways, Plague Wind is another card that's like 9 mana, destroy everything you don't control, they can't be regenerated. Like, that's a really powerful effect, but yeah, just 9 mana is too much. So let's look at this. We have, for the big drops, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 big drops. That's a little bit too much. I like to run about 6 of them, so we want to get rid of a few more, and really we want to get rid of one of these. And Rune-Scarred Demon, let's not kid ourselves, this guy is just not gonna go away, because he pretty much says you win the game as well, but for 7 mana instead of 8. Except you win it a turn later than you play it, because then you play the one card that you got that, you know, is just the card you need in the situation, and if you're gonna have it. So yeah, he's just not gonna go away. He's too good. Even at 7 mana, I just can't drop this guy. He's amazing. And Phage, on the other hand, it doesn't fly, doesn't draw you the card you need, and occasionally, well, a lot of times gets chump blocked and doesn't do anything. So yeah, I know that this is a control deck, and you pretty much have all the answers to their chump blockers. Like, you can kill everything they have, and Phage has a good chance of getting in. But look at what cards do that. It's like, you know, Mutilate, well, you kill your own Phage. And aside from this, you can't even like rise from the grave your Phage. So if I'm playing against mill, then a Rune-Scarred Demon hits the graveyard from their milling, then I can rise from the grave, Rune-Scarred Demon, get whatever I need, win that way. I can't do that with Phage because I lose the game if I do it. So yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is that Phage is a worse card than Rune-Scarred Demon. However, and here's the thing, if this game had sideboarding, you know, it doesn't, but if this game had sideboarding, and I was playing against like Crosswinds, then I might put in Phage rather than Rune-Scarred Demon, for the simple reason that if they have bribery, then Phage kills them, whereas Rune-Scarred Demon pretty much wins then the game. So there's a thought, but since there's no sideboarding, that doesn't come into play, and yeah. Okay, so we need to get rid of one more of these, and really Corrupt. You can't say no to Corrupt. It wins you games. Dread wins you games. Grave Titan wins you games. Massacre Wurm wins you games. So yeah, we're gonna get rid of one of the nightmares, and those are the big drops. So yeah, and now we have to look at the rest of the mana curve. So we have 4 cards at 5 mana. However, really I count these Icy Manipulators as 5 mana as well. So basically we want like 4 cards at 5 mana at the most, because we're gonna have a lot of, if you look at the forecast cards, then we're gonna have a lot of trouble cutting a bunch of those. So they're the 5 mana cost cards in this deck don't do that much, and I would definitely want to keep Rise from the Grave, given the nature of this deck. If they kill your bomb and you Rise from the Grave, then you pretty much win the game. If you kill one of their huge creatures and you Rise from the Grave, you pretty much win the game. So Rise from the Grave just has to be in this deck. So then you end up looking at the rest of it, and if I need to get rid of like 2 more of these, then I want to look at how good is Halo Hunter and how good is Nightwing Shade. And really, Nightwing Shade is a flyer, which is a good point for it, right? But it comes down as a 2/2. You're not gonna play this on turn 6, so you're never gonna, or turn 7, so you're never gonna have the mana open to pump him the same turn you play him, because to the pump, it's just not good enough. I like that he's a flyer, however, because this deck can have trouble against flyers, which is also why this Nightmare is so important to this deck. And if the other bombs weren't so ridiculously good, then I would definitely play the other Nightmare. But yeah, so flying is important, and I would have liked to have a good flying creature at turn 5, because this deck doesn't usually do anything turn 5 either way. So having a good flying creature on turn 5 would be perfect for me. But Nightwing Shade just isn't it, it's just not good. So then you look at Halo Hunter, and he has 3 toughness, which is just not great, but he is a 6 power guy with Intimidate. So he basically can win the game on his own under the right circumstances. And yeah, he gets killed to a lightning bolt. He dies to a lightning bolt. Oh well, that's fine. But like, given the fact that I don't have much to do turn 5 usually, I like him. I like him a lot, and he kills the opponent in 4 turns with Intimidate. So why wouldn't I run him, right? So then we get rid of 1 Icy Manipulator. So we have 1 Icy Manipulator turn 5. Because you wanna play this turn 5 so that you can immediately dab something as well. That's why I call it a 5 drop, even though it costs 4. So now I have 4 cards that are effectively turn 5 spells, even though it just says 3. So yeah, now we want to look at our 4 cost creatures and our 3 cost creatures basically. And well, really, I guess we'll go for the 1 cost first, because we know there's going to be a lot of 3 cost cards and a lot of 4 cost cards. From that we can deduce that we want to run as few 1 card, like we don't want to run too many of these, because it's going to cramp up our deck, and you know, it means dropping a murder. Then I don't want to do it. Like, I want to run all 4 murders, for instance, and I want to run all 4 not Liliana Shades, for instance. Just saying that. So that's what I'm gonna do. So anyways, if we wanna look at these, and I wanna get rid of 2, like I wanna have 4 cards that I wanna play on turn 1. Mire Stole is not a spell you play turn 1, so I'm not gonna count that as a 1 drop. So if we wanna have 4 1-drops, then we have to get rid of 2 of these, and which are the worst of them? Well, it's Fume Spitter. So there you go. Bye bye Fume Spitter. Like, this is just basically a chump block plus -1/-1 counter on target creature. And really the deck that's good against is Goblins. That's the only deck it's good against, and it does work for you, and it allows you to survive longer. But against the other decks, it's just pure card disadvantage most of the time. And Crippling Blight like does the same thing, except it can actually be useful in the late game because it says end can't block, you know, so you can actually win the game with it if you draw it late game. Whereas Crippling Blight, if you draw this Fume Spitter, if you draw this late game, then it just doesn't do anything at all. So that's why Crippling Blight is good and Fume Spitter is not good. And Instant Blood is just good. Sometimes you draw this and you have your big bomb and you have nothing else, and then you're just sad because you have to sacrifice your big bomb if you want to deal with their creature. But most of the time it just does a lot of work for you, and it's good late game or early game, and you can usually play around it, and the opponent doesn't know it's coming, but you know it's coming, so that makes it good. So at the free cost curve, I suppose, we have this we have these 4 murders, and we have Vampire Nighthawk, which I know is going to be played, and then we have Infest, which I also know I'm going to play. So do I really want to have so many free drops? I just don't, so I get rid of these 3. And really they are like borderline, like this isn't a discard deck, this guy is okay, but and it does give you some card advantage, but just in comparison with the other free drops you don't want to run him. And Last Kiss is actually a pretty bad spell to begin with. The only reason you might want to run this is against goblins. It does kill a goblin, and Murder does the same, except you gain 2 life if you do it with Last Kiss. So, but it's just a worse spell. Like if this was 2 mana, then I would run this in a heartbeat. 3 mana is just a bad spell, so I'm not gonna do it. And then we come to the 4 mana curve, which is really the toughest one, and which is why I saved it for last. But we know that there are some cards that you just can't say no to, like Tendrils of Corruption, you have to play this. Phyrexian Obliterator, you have to play it. Mutilate has to be played. 4 Liliana Shades have to be played. This is not a 4-drop, so I'm not going to talk about it. Diabolic Tutor, I tested it and it seems really good. It actually does a lot more work for you than you think, so I advise that you definitely play this card. So basically, at that point you just start taking out the worst of it, right? So Bloodhunter bet, it does a lot of work for you, but this would have been good on turn 2 or turn 3, a similar effect, like I said, because the life gain is good. But on turn 3 and turn 4 you're really more focused on controlling the game rather than dropping Bloodhunter bet, so you're not gonna play that guy. And then Befoul is a kill spell for 4 mana, whereas you have kill spells for 3 mana, and yes, this can kill land, however it can't kill black creatures. So I think that being able to kill a black creature is more important than being able to kill a land. And yes, I know that the black decks are the fewest of the well, black is the least, the color that is least represented in these 10 decks, I suppose. It's like 1.5, whereas every other deck is 2, and white has 2.5 decks. But I don't think it's good, because just it's a forecast. The non-black clause may be important and screw you over, but really what is important for me is that it's a forecast skill spell, where I have free cast skill spells, and destroy target land is nice if it's a bonus, but in this case it costs me a mana just to have that option, and I don't think it's good enough for that. And I have played land destruction before, but if your deck isn't made for land destruction, like Ancient Wilds can do it very convincingly and just keep doing it and totally own the opponent with it. When you just keep getting your acidic slimes and destroying the land, that's good. But randomly they can be mana screwed and you can befoul them, and then they draw their mana anyway and you feel like an idiot and you're like, well, I should have killed that guy, I guess, and now I'm fucked. It's very good when it works, but it's bad when it doesn't work. And cards that are bad when they don't work, well, I mean, cards that have the ability to not work are usually bad. And yeah, that's just how I feel about this. And I have tested it and noted down how many times I would have rather had a murder, and like 8 times out of 10 I would have rather had a murder than a befoul, or just any other forecast spell like Liliana Shade, for instance. It's 4 mana, I want to ramp up to my big guys, And me getting a land is more important to me than them not getting a land in this deck. So there you go. And then, you know, there's one more card you need to get rid of, so it's gonna have to be Necrotal. And again, I guess the main reason is it's non-black and it's a 4-cost kill spell, whereas you have 3-cost kill spells. This does give you a 2/1 first strike guy, and that's really good, and it's one of the oldest 2-for-1s. This is really like straight out of the book of 2-for-1s, the big example of a 2-for-1, and yet it just doesn't work well enough in this deck. 4-cost kill spell is too late, except when it's Tendrils of Corruption, because then it gains you back the life that you lost waiting a turn longer to play it, I guess. Anyways, so Necrotal, not gonna play it, and yeah, that makes the mana curve pretty good. So I have 4 1-drops, we're not counting the Mire Stole, 6 2-drops, I have 3 3-drops, I have 8 4-drops, not counting the Icy Manipulator, I have 4 5-drops, and I have 6 plus drops. So 5 6-drops and 1 7-drop, and he's in there just because he's so much better than running another Nightmare. So even though he costs 1 more mana, he's worth it. So that's an example of a card that is worth it when you need 1 more mana, and even at the very end of the curve of my deck. So yeah, but that's the deck. Let's go over it slowly so that you guys can take notes of the deck, I suppose, if you need to. Although I'm probably just gonna write down all the cards I'm using in this build in the description so that you can look there if you need to. And that's my build. Seeing as this video is already very long, save and quit please. I'm not gonna add gameplay to this, however I'm gonna get gameplay as well, and it's probably gonna be uploaded later today or the next day, depending on when this comes out, which pretty much depends on how long it's gonna take me to edit this and render it and upload it. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed. I hope this taught you some things, and I hope that you know, it's been helpful, and more people are gonna be playing this deck, which is a lot more fun rather than, like, say, goblins. Either way guys, my name has been Nemo, my name will still be Nemo next time, and you'll see a gameplay video then.